Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Scale Smart podcast. I'm your host, Jacob, and also the founder of Next Scale Growth. Today, I had the pleasure of being joined by the CEO of Elloe AI, Owen Sakawa. Owen, thank you for joining me.
Thank you so much for having me, Jacob, to the show.
It's a pleasure to have you on. Owen, before we get into the questions, I want to understand more about you, the business, your expertise, and what actually led to you becoming the CEO. So, do you mind telling me and also the audience a little bit more about your background and what you guys do at Elloe?
Yeah, thank you so much, Jacob. So, as you have heard, my name is Owen Sakawa, and I'm the founder and CEO of Ello, a company that currently is being referred to as the immune system for AI. And our mission is very simple to make sure that enterprises, governments, and institutions, especially those in the highly regulated industries, can be able to deploy AI safely, responsibly, and also at scale. So, a little bit about my journey. I grew up in Kenya where I started my first company at 14 years old, which I ended up exiting before I actually turned 20. And that early experience taught me something that is critically important. Speed matters in technology, but speed without trust is a disaster, basically. And that's the same challenge I see with AI today, where everyone is racing to build faster model, but very few people are asking a very critical question. Can we actually trust these AI models that we are deploying in our infrastructure? One hallucination in healthcare could be a life or death. Another compliance could be an issue, especially in the financial services, which at scale, those risks multiply very quickly. And that's why ELO exists today. We turn regulatory compliance like HIPAA, GDPR, in the EU AI Act into executable rules that sit at output layer of every AI system, stopping any risky responses before they ever reach your patients, your bankers, or even regulators. So in short, we just don't monitor AI. We immunize it the same way our body uses the immune system. So up to today, we've been able to validate over 20 million AI outputs with partners like John Hopkins, the EU Commission, and several top 5 banks in the world. And the lesson we keep coming back is this: the winners in AI won't be the one who scale recklessly. They'll be the one who scale responsibly.
Well, thank you for sharing that. Great to hear your story. Owen, Ello has achieved some tremendous growth, $2.5 million in ARR and quite a big enterprise pipeline. You guys mentioned over 10 million as of 2025. So what would you say were some of the biggest challenges you had scaling to that point? And what would you say now are some of the biggest challenges you're seeing scaling to that next level?
Well, that's a very good question. And if I could correct you back there. So the 2.5 million, that was our revenue in April. So as of today, September, starting in Q4, our revenue has grown up to 133% in the last 4 months to 5.6 million annual revenue. And our pipeline has grown from 10 million to 18 million annual revenue. This growth has been very incredible, but it comes with challenges. When you're moving at this fast pace, the biggest enemy isn't competition, it's the complexity. So early on, we had to make tough choices about focus. Do we focus on every opportunity and the hype, or do we double down on regulated industries where trust really matters? So we chose focus in healthcare, finance, and government. Another challenge was building enterprise muscle. Elo has grown through the use of proof of value or POVs, which don't mean much if they don't convert. So we had to create a playbook that turned a 90-day POV into a long-term contract. And today, that conversion rate is up to 80% conversion rate. In short, scaling isn't about doing more, basically. It's about saying no more often and building the structures, the systems, the blueprints that lets us deliver consistently for our clients.
The business being where it is right now, Owen, in order for you to get to the next level, what would you say some of the challenges you're seeing right now which could potentially stop you from getting to that level?
Say the biggest challenge we've seen is the AI space is extremely crowded. Most companies are building monitors. They're flagging problems after the fact, and most people don't know the issue that AI could cause until it's too late. You can't stop an issue after the fact that has already happened. So the biggest challenge has been educating every consumer, every company trying to deploy AI to ensure that they're deploying it accurately and safely, because if they don't do that at the end of the day, we will see a lot of legal issues coming up. We see right now in Texas, for example, a lot of AI companies deploying models saying we do mental health in AI, mental health. And what's happening is a lot of these companies are being monitored by the state attorney in Texas because there's a lot of issues when you deploy AI and it's working not for good, but for the purpose of the user.
And moving on now to a little bit of a different topic now, because you guys are offering really highly specialized trust, safety, and compliance tooling, like the truth checker you guys have got, autopsy for these enterprise AI workflows. And as you just mentioned there, the AI space is very crowded, and I've seen it as well from working with multiple different AI firms.
Mhm.
What would you say are some of the strategic approaches you're using to stay differentiated in the market and also ahead of all of the competition, which is just flooding in right now?
Yeah, sure. That's a good question as well, Josh, Jacob, because strategically we've built our moat in the regulated industry using several modules that we proprietary built, like the TruthChecker, Autopsy, AutoRAG, and our latest partnership with NVIDIA, where you see most companies are just building these features while we are making sure we're embedding these technologies at the infrastructure level, where if you're deploying AI before the decision is sent out to your user, it has to go through these checks and balances, fact checking to ensure one, it's compliant to the different regulatory issues that are out there. And at the same time, it's verified and authenticated using your own data. What we see a lot here is a lot of companies are building tools to monitor those decisions. So it's like driving a car without brakes. You wouldn't go too far. So we ensure that our value proposition is making sure that every single output, every single decision your AI is making, before that output goes to your user, it has gone through our fact checking tools and ensuring that we are able to monitor everything before it causes any harm to your users.
And I think that's a really important point which you just made, and it's a big thing which I see is one of the challenges, like you mentioned, is that key differentiator and how to really stay ahead. And it's something which I've worked really closely with some companies as well, because people overcomplicate it sometimes, and it's not as complicated as people seem. Um,
Right.
One thing which I think is really, really important is all able to kind of stand out in front of your competitors is all about the authority which you've got in the industry, how people perceive you, what your class as, because a lot of people refer to themselves as a partner, but their customers are just seeing them as another vendor, and they don't see that. So I think what a lot of companies don't realize is that they need to be out there as a strategic partner and position themselves as an authority, because that's what I've seen is key in becoming a differentiator and almost getting ahead of that competition.
That's right. That is right. That is right. Because you see, a lot of companies are more focused on moving fast. A lot of companies are focused on building the fastest model, building the fastest automation. But one critical question we need to ask, what happens if the AI goes wrong? Especially in healthcare. That's an industry where a simple bias, a simple hallucination, it's either a life or a death situation. And that one hallucination could violate multiple laws that would end up causing a lot of lawsuits for these companies as well. And as you see, a lot of the states are now introducing regulations. In New York, they just introduced an AI bias law. This is to focus on this deployment, especially in the regulated industries. In Texas, we have the AI risk law, which is almost the same thing, but also trying to ensure that the AI that we're using doesn't cause harm to our consumer.
And going back to what you said at the start, Owen, and what you constantly say on LinkedIn, social media, or your website, is that Hello is the immune system for AI, offering
Yes.
some real time guardrails for these enterprise LLMs. So, how do you see these AI systems evolving in these regulated industries which you're operating? And how does Hello envision its role of these systems actually becoming more mainstream?
So that's a good question. So as you said, we see Ella as the immune system for AI because we believe the human immune system is the most perfect ever created system because it learns with you, it grows with you, and it's always constantly protecting you from the viruses and bacteria that you didn't even know, you are not aware that you are sick until you start seeing symptoms. Could be sweating, you start seeing symptoms coming out and you're like, apparently you are unwell, but you had an inbuilt system in your body that is fighting these viruses and bacteria on your behalf. And the same analogy, the same concept is what we've mirrored into the AI industry because we feel like AI is an anomaly. It's a foreign body that even most AI companies don't get it. The other day, we saw the CEO of Anthropic saying, he doesn't understand the decisions that is making. So if you see global players like Anthropic say we don't understand, how AI is making this decision, this should stop you in your tracks as a consumer, as a company, as a startup, and ask yourself, if I'm building a wrap on top of Anthropics, yet this company doesn't understand how and why the AI makes certain decision. What about you, a small startup, small consumer building agentic tools? What about you?
Great answer there. Great answer. And looking into the future now, Owen, for the next level for the company, what are some of the goals you've got in terms of growing the revenue to that next level, potentially building out new products, potentially expanding into different regions? What are some of the goals you've got on the horizon for the next 6 to 12 months with Ello?
So our current growth right now is, growing our momentum. We're growing extremely fast. Since we took our pivot in 2023 into building the AI guardrails, our next goal is to ensuring that at least every AI company building LLMs or wrappers around current LLMs, they are doing it responsibly and they're doing it accurately. So our next goal is ensure that Elo is the DNA of every single AI company out there. Whether you're in the healthcare space, whether you're in banking, whether you're in legal, government, or even financial services, we want Elo to be like your big brother, whereby every time you go to bed at night, you know the next day you won't end up in headlines. Because one thing is these compliance are changing very fast. And 2025 was a wake up call for some of the companies that, were involved in lawsuits because of the decisions their AI made. And we see those lawsuits, growing 10 times faster, 10 times more in 2026 because the more regulations that are coming in, the more we need to have these conversations around AI for good and building responsible AI.
And if people wanted to reach out to you, Owen, and engage within a conversation or just have a look at what you guys are up to, where's the best place for them to do that?
The best place to reach out to me is on LinkedIn. My LinkedIn is Owen Sakawa, or even sending me an email. I normally respond to a lot of my emails. That is Owen at Ello.
Amazing. Well, Owen, I appreciate you coming onto the podcast today. It's been a pleasure talking to you about your journey, building up Ello, and how you're staying different within, let's say, a crowded AI space. So thank you so much for coming on and sharing your experience and sharing your expertise today. It's been a pleasure to talk to you.
Thank you, Jacob. It's been a pleasure sharing what we are working on and educating your listeners, your audience on what's going on in the AI space. It's always exciting to share some of our journey, some of our lessons to the world and ensuring that as we are evolving in the AI space, we're also evolving the right way. So thank you so much for your time, and I look forward to getting the feedback from your audience as well.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Owen.
Thank you.